back to another episode of Flex and Facts. Today we're going to flex and we're going to give you the facts. Our good friend Gino Melito of the show.
Hi, everyone.
Can you say hi, Gino?
You did. Hi, Gino.
Oh, you said hi. Okay. I'm not even paying attention. Yeah. Joe
Hey,
Sabusco
how you doing?
to my left.
How you doing, Tony?
Doing great.
Good.
And today we want to introduce a really close friend of mine, a great guy, a father, and a rabbi, Rabbi Scher. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
It's a real pleasure to have you. You know what? We've been wanting to have you for a while. We've been to your synagogue. We've been to a lot of events. You do some interesting stuff for the community. And maybe we'll just start off kind of tell the people what inspired you to become a rabbi and how you pursue this career.
Fantastic question. So I grew up Jewish.
Yeah.
And I was always very attracted to like spirituality. Spirituality was something that always attracted me. But there was many years of my life that I had no intention of becoming a rabbi. In fact, shortly before my wife and I met, I was planning on going to law school. So my wife thought she was marrying a lawyer. And then that all changed, and luckily she stuck with me. But basically what I realized is that I wanted to be a lawyer, but that there were so many things that a lawyer wouldn't have the opportunity to do in their lives. And as I thought about what could it be, what would be that one place in life that I could take upon myself that I would be able to do most of the things I wanted to do, which included learning and teaching, and which included building community and being there for people, which included advocating on behalf of those that are vulnerable, all of those different things. What could possibly incorporate all of that with that strong dose of spirituality? At that point, that's when I decided I'm going to be a rabbi. And it's been quite an incredible journey.
So what challenges do you face now, especially in this modern world?
So I think there's a lot of challenges, but I think that spirituality can respond to a lot of those challenges. I mean, you think about probably one of the biggest challenges is the lack of real relationships and the lack of real communication, right? Think about how we all communicate with each other. Social media is, taking over our lives. We think about how the media communicates. It's these sound bites, right? We don't have real, true conversations anymore. We don't go through, the facts and have the back and forth discussions. That's how humanity has always grown as civilizations. And those things are really missing. And I think that spirituality and the power of relationships, that's how we're going to re-harness all of that beauty, all of that truth that's missing from the world. So there's so many different challenges, but I think each one of those challenges, we those that are connected to matters of the spirit, something beyond the here and now, really can find the beautiful responses to and ways to move forward and live on a really high plane.
Gino.
You told me not to ask any questions.
No, comment on that. I want you to comment because you know what?
I want to hear more. I want
Yeah.
to hear more about the spirituality aspect, because a lot of people don't understand what spirituality really means. How do you define spirituality?
That's a great
Because
question.
it means different things to different people.
Totally. Like for some people, it means faith, right? Now, faith in what? Like, any of you guys here, faith? You want to weigh in? What's faith mean for you? How does faith come into your life?
So I never saw Jesus Christ. The faith is that he existed.
That he exists.
That's my faith, because I have no other evidence.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
God is the same
There
thing.
You go.
Right?
Exactly.
I have to have faith
someone
in
that
God.
you can't lose that, or else you kind of lose yourself. So
Yeah. Exactly.
It's really believable.
So you're saying like a higher, like this a guiding light.
That's right.
Almost, right?
Somewhat, yes.
Something that's beyond us all, something a higher power. That's what they'll say often.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that idea of faith and the belief in and living your life with this idea that there is a higher purpose, that everything in life has meaning because it was created by a purposeful God, right? You think about, just for a moment, you think about if you don't have faith that God created this universe, then what is the universe? It's pretty random then, right? We're here randomly. Is there any meaning to anything when you start from the very beginning that there was a purposeful creator? Then that infuses purpose into all of our lives. And then as we continue living our lives with that type of purpose, then then we are able to really live fully with an energy, with a vitality, because we're living purposeful lives. Everything we're doing makes a huge difference. So I think that that's one area. I'll tell you one thing. Sometimes as a rabbi, I end up being there with people at their most difficult moments. And what's, off the top of your head, what's the most difficult moments someone could ever face?
Death.
And specifically, I think the death of a child.
Oh yeah.
Right. And we don't want this to get to be, too dark of an episode. So we'll try to jump right off of that in just a moment. But here in Ottawa, we have a very special place and a very profound place, which is the Roger Nielsen House at Chio. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
It's a hospice for children.
Absolutely.
And I've been there, a whole bunch of times. And when you are interacting with parents that have a connection to spirituality, something beyond themselves, something that gives life purpose beyond the randomness of things happening, right? If you don't have that sense of spirituality, then losing a child, it's the most random event that could ever happen. You feel just completely helpless. There's nothing left. It's so hard to pick yourself up off the floor. When you have that sense of spirituality, that sense of there is a higher purpose. And even in this moment, there's a higher purpose. And if you believe in God, there's a loving God that is there to be with you. Those are things that make a massive difference. And you see the difference in the families, those that have that connection to spirituality and those that don't. I'm not saying it's automatic. And I'm not saying that if you don't believe in this stuff, that it's easy to start believing. But certainly if you do, embrace it and teach it to your children.
Okay, I agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
But I do still have, the definition is not quite clear. The
Good.
reason why I'm saying that is because the spirituality always have to involve a God, or can it be spiritual? Maybe my brother may come to me, or somebody else who's passed away, or, because people will think of spirituality as spirits in themselves, maybe talking to you or saying things. And so I'm going to believe in the higher power, i.e. God, Jesus.
I love that. I think that's a great question. No. So think about the word spirituality. What's a spirit? What's a spirit?
That was the point. The spirit could be the spirit of my brother.
Yeah. But what is a spirit? A spirit is something that's beyond this physical world. We can't see a spirit.
No, absolutely. Yes.
Right? You don't see your spirit, but the spirit is the essence of everything. Right? Now, for me, the spirit of every single person is a connection to the divine, is a connection to God. And that's the essence of the world. That's what brings purpose to the entire world. But for some, it may not be a connection to God per se. It's that there's something beyond the here and now. There's something beyond the physical world that can seem so random. There's a purpose and a unity to the entire universe. I think that's what, when we talk about spirit, that's what it is. It's this realm right above, the concrete flesh and blood of the human reality.
How do you explain that to an atheist?
So that's a good question, and I think that there are spiritual atheists, right? They see, the truth is I don't know too much about atheists. Atheism. I think that that may be a good next guest is to bring someone that's an atheist on. But from what I understand, you can have deeply spiritual atheists that even though they may not believe in the concept of God as a creator, they can see that there's more to life and there's more to our reality than just the physical. Think about our emotions, right? We feel emotions, right?
Course,
we know emotions exist. Can we see emotions? No, but you feel them. There's something that's below, beyond the surface. And I think that connecting with that is in itself going to be a spiritual experience. And also a really important experience, becoming more and more aware of what's going on inside of ourselves, that inner work. But anyways.
Joe, what do you have to say with that?
Yeah.
Just keep rolling.
I was
pretty interested here.
And I was going to say, with the Torah, what are the most, or some of the most important values and beliefs out of that? That you could share with everybody.
Yeah.
Because it's so important. You know that better than anybody else, but what would you say some of the most important beliefs and values are?
I love that question. Meaning the way I would put it is, of all of the Abrahamic faiths, right? Abrahamic faiths, are we familiar with that term? Right? Yes. There's 3 major faiths that came from Abraham: Judaism, Christianity and Islam, right? So Jews were around first, right? Sometimes I'm with a Christian friend, and they'll introduce me as their older brother in faith. So I guess the way to ask that question is that what is the Torah, which is the Jewish part of the Bible? What did Judaism have to offer the world, right? And then at this point we talk about Judeo-Christian values, because so much of Christian values came from the Jewish values. They're from the same Bible that we have.
The Old Testament, yes.
Yeah, the Old Testament, exactly, Gina. So I think that there are many, but I want to talk about the things that are like uniquely Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
So I think number one God. That idea is really important. God is a creator, because that's what gives purpose, as I was talking about, right? If there's, if there wasn't a purposeful creator, then the world is completely random and our existence is random. And that's a chaotic thought to even think about. Shabbat. You've been to our house for Shabbat.
Yeah.
Shabbat, I think, is... So, by the way, where does this idea... Forever and ever, you had a 7-day work week. Where's this idea of not having a 7-day work week come from? Originally from the Bible, from Shabbat, right? Our Shabbat, our Sabbath. That's where it all came from. Other faiths and other religions ended up having a different day for Sabbath, but it all started with our Sabbath. Taking, Saturday, day we desist from work. And I think that may be one of the most revolutionary concepts. And I think that nowadays, people are realizing just how important that is. Having a day where we are not being productive in the usual manner, or we're not working, or we're not building, but rather we're taking a step back, living in the present, appreciating what we had built, right? Throughout that week, what we had worked for throughout the week, and realigning ourselves with our priorities, which for me would be God, my family, my community, and having a day that's spent on and myself as well. I think that's an important one. Having that day to rejuvenate, having that day to recalibrate, I think that may be one of the most revolutionary concepts that Judaism brought to this world.
And I agree with that.
Can you elaborate on that special day that your Sabbath? For us, it's Sunday.
Yeah.
We probably don't hold it as holy as you guys do the Sabbath, especially the real Judaism,
like the observant Jews.
Yeah, exactly. So what is it that you guys do on that Sabbath?
Yeah. So some.
Because I heard you can't even turn on the light switch.
Yeah, so this is going to sound, some of this stuff's going to sound
telling
so
you, it's
I was there.
Yeah.
I was at his place.
Okay,
Yeah.
Friday,
Sounds like Canada every day.
Yeah. So starting so it's Friday night sundown to Saturday night nightfall. Okay,
Yeah.
that's our Sabbath. And for the observant Jew, we do not use electricity. So number one, that's a very big one, right? So now we can have lights on from before Shabbat, from before our Sabbath. We call it Shabbat or Shabbos.
Right.
But that's a pretty big one, because that means we're not using our phones. That means we're not using our computers. We're not using our laptops. We are taking that break from technology that every human being badly needs. So that's first and foremost. We spend more time in synagogue. So we spend more time in prayer, contemplation, reflection, meditation. We spend more time with our community.
Okay, I'm not talking about you as a rabbi. I'm talking about the Jews in general.
An observant Jew.
Okay.
Observant Jew.
All right. I wanted to clarify that.
Because there are definitely different levels of how much of Shabbat you take into your life. And probably the hallmark, the part of Shabbat that the greatest number of Jews celebrate and observe is the Shabbat dinner. Shabbat dinner. If you haven't experienced a Shabbat dinner, get in touch with me. It's a very special time, for the Jewish people. And basically, it's like this: we get home from synagogue, for those that go to synagogue, and we begin with a little prayer, and that prayer is basically welcoming peace into our homes, these peaceful energies into our home, the Shabbat energy into our home. And it's profound when you think about it. We are intentionally, with intention, bringing peace into our home and into our lives. And we believe that there's a special Shabbat calm that we're ushering in. And then those that are married will turn to our wives. And in appreciation and in love and in commitment, we'll share the words of King Solomon from Proverbs, where he describes the woman of valor, and we'll sing in a traditional melody together with our children these words, recognizing the in Hebrew we call it the Aker Habayit, the very foundation of the home is a wife. Yeah, is our wife specifically. So there's that piece, and then we turn to our children, and in a crazy week, right? A crazy week. How often do we get this one-on-one time with our children? We turn to our children, and each one gets a moment where we say, give them a blessing. And it's a blessing that's ancient. It goes back thousands of years. May God protect you and guard you and watch over you and share his countenance upon you. And may God bless you in peace. And then what we'll usually do for each child, try to share just one little thought. This is what I was so proud of you about today or this week or something along those lines. So we have the intimate moment with our children. And then we go through a couple of other beautiful rituals over a glass of wine. We usher in the Shabbat with blessings, remembering and reflecting on our time of. So do you know about the Jewish story? You ever heard of Passover?
Of course.
Yeah.
Passover, right?
Yeah.
So we talk about the Exodus from Egypt.
Yeah.
We think a lot about our time in Egypt because that was a time that we went through. We were very vulnerable. We went through horrible times. And we're told, you got to remember this constantly so that we can always think about others that are vulnerable. You know what it's like, make sure that you're thinking about others that are vulnerable. So we even as we're ushering in the Shabbat, our head goes there as well. And then we have a beautiful, beautiful meal. And without any sort of technology at this meal, it's a time that we get to connect with the people around the table, connect in a way that is impossible the rest of the week. And that's like the hallmark of our Shabbat dinner. That's the hallmark of Shabbat. That's the hallmark of the Jewish week. That's the hallmark of the rhythm of the Jewish year. And it's a really special time.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's great to hear the facts about Shabbat and the Sabbath because
Yeah.
I knew about it, obviously, through all my Jewish friends, but I knew it in history. But, the details you just told us are amazing. I think I'm going to do that with my children and grandchildren.
Yeah.
Well, I think-
Just to have that connection.
I think more and more people should do that. I mean, we were speaking earlier. I think a lot of that is forgotten. It's gone, and that's why a lot of people are kind of steering themselves towards a whole new world. Like, because you go to church, you go to the synagogue, wherever it is that you kind of like go and connect. But I think a lot of that is lost because people don't know, even the young generation. I mean, even in schools, a lot of this is not being taught anymore. So there's no more values and morals. It's just
hatred.
It's just, you see it out there. It's like, it just makes no sense. And I mean, we got to go back to this,
I know, but Christians are staying away from churches. And I know that for a fact because I speak to some of my friends of mine that are priests. But how is it in Judaism? Do you find that they're also staying away as well? It's not what it used to be?
That is a really good question. So I find that people think that people are staying away from religion, but when it's offered in a welcoming, embracing way, when it's offered in a way that speaks to the modern struggles. What are the struggles of any family, any person in today's day and age? If what you're offering can respond to those struggles, if what you're offering can, makes people feel that warmth and, kind of feel their spirit again, then they're going to be coming. And therefore, there are plenty of synagogues. There are many synagogues that people are stopping to go to. But there's just as many synagogues in this day and age that people are coming to in droves, and it's a beautiful thing. And I can't weigh in on the reality for churches, but I am certain that there's got to be some.
Well, it's
really
funny, yeah.
Right, go ahead.
No, there are some churches that obviously are full, like you said, but it all depends on the priest.
Yeah.
It's like, it's funny. We were talking about earlier about what happened.
Don't get me started with it. This is my pet peeve. Okay. I'm a fitness trainer.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and if someone says, teach me how to do a lunge. Well, I don't have to look at a book to teach them how to do a lunge because I've done it gazillions of times. Yeah. And I've been to enough ceremonies where it's kind of the same repetitive message. And then you kind of switch in a different way. So I think what makes people more engaged is people that talk to people. You don't have to read it. I've been to a few of some of the events that, you've spoken to people, some that were obviously not the greatest events because we've lost a loved one. But again, you're engaging with the people. So it's very interesting, that you kind of send a message and you show people how to deepen their spirits through the knowledge of what your profession is. Where some people are just like, and they're reading, they're not even looking up, and people are falling asleep. I look around all the time. I mean, we were at an event where people literally walked out. They just couldn't take it anymore. People literally walked out because that's how boring the ceremony was.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the ceremony.
It wasn't the ceremony. It was the message. Yes.
The preacher wasn't good.
I think what Tony's trying to say is, so in most cases, if you're a preacher, you've been preaching the same message for probably dozens of years. Yeah. Why is it that you're trying to turn pages and switching pages to get the message? Shouldn't you remember the most common things like,
you shouldn't be reading anymore.
You should, or even share, I mean, you go there because it's almost like a lesson. Guys, today, this is the whatever article out of whatever that we call it, right? And this is how this message is related to the everyday world. Like, teach the people that are coming to your community, your church, your synagogue. Explain it. That's what's intriguing. But if it's just like you're looking down, like you said, it's like, what am I here for?
But you know what? You're looking down, and I know that I've been to synagogues many times as well. You guys also read, and you read pages and pages and pages. So it's not just the priest. But I think the way you read the message, the way you send out that message is a little bit better, like Tony was saying earlier, about that personal communication that you have, with your followers, right? Which I think some of our priests don't have that. So maybe shed some light on why is it that you have to read sometimes, even though you've done the same thing for dozens of years.
So I'll actually tell you about that. That's interesting. So if you go to a synagogue service, there are two parts to it. There's the prayer part to it. And then there's the, as you're referring to it, the preaching part of it, the speaking part of it, where the rabbi will speak. The prayer part of it is actually the part that's a lot of pages. And our prayers, we're a traditional synagogue, so our prayers are all in Hebrew. We have English translations in our prayer books, and great little English commentaries in our prayer books, but the prayer is led in Hebrew and it's sang together in Hebrew. And I think that there's meaning in, so why do people come if they don't know Hebrew? Why in the world do people come? I think that there's a lot of meaning for people. They have a basic understanding of what the prayers are about, but these are ancient prayers that generation after generation and after generation have found great meaning in. So even if you may not know the Hebrew per se, I think even just using the ideas, and the Hebrew words are very, very powerful, but using the ideas as a way to almost meditate, to reflect, to use those as a kind of a springboard for reflection. And then we get to the rabbi's speech. Now, the rabbi's speech is in English. There aren't pages and pages. And I think what really makes or breaks a rabbi's speech is how well they know their community, how well they know what human beings are dealing with, what's on their minds at any given moment in time. And that takes connection. You have to be very deeply connected to your community if you want to be able to know what it is that they're thirsting to hear. And then you have to spend time crafting that, the messages that you believe your community needs to hear. So it's actually it's a multi-pronged process. And it's, no one said it's easy, but certainly if you can hit it on that mark, then people are going to come.
And I think there's been less than that, Gino. Would you agree with that?
I think there has, but Christianity and Judaism, they're so closely intertwined. The only difference between us is the New Testament. But as far as the Old Testament, we follow it to the T. So you talked about, You're
talking to a rabbi.
I know that. Yeah, I know that. Of course he knows that.
He's trying to teach us religion now, Gino.
No comments? Anyway, my point I'm trying to make is we call that the gospel. We call that
the white collar on, Gino.
So your speech is our priest's gospel. So you read first the prayer of the Sunday, let's say, because I try to go most Sunday masses. And then, the priest has the gospel where he's not really reading. He reads the gospel and then he explains the gospel in today's terms, in today's community, just like you said.
Church on Sundays.
And that's what it's all about. So what I'm saying is we are closely intertwined. The only difference is than in Old Testament. As
Yeah,
you
so I think
obviously know.
there are many differences, but I think to your point that our speeches, are going to be very similar. Meaning the goal of our speeches are similar. The question is about execution, but the goal is similar. You're going to be taking, a priest is going to be taking whatever passages they were reading on that specific Sunday, try to make them as accessible as possible to this day and age for these people. And we're going to do the same thing with our readings, with our Torah portion readings for that week, and try to make them as accessible as possible, and really show the lessons how, if God is infinite and these are God's lessons, then just as much as they were relevant 3,000 years ago, they're going to be just as relevant today. And that's what a rabbi will try to do.
You just touched a little bit of a thing here, science versus religion.
Yeah.
So what do you say to people? We know the Jewish religion goes back under 10,000 years, actually 6,000 years.
Yeah, almost 6,000.
Yeah, exactly.
You must probably pass your religion class, eh?
Always.
Are you trying to?
No,
actually,
I did.
Father Gino.
So, as you know,
Father Gino, and you said
listen,
church.
I know a lot more religion about
Hold on a
you two
second.
put
And you-
together.
and you said-
definitely not Rabbi Scher, but you
and
two I can
and
bury.
you actually go to church Sunday. When was the last time you went to church?
Last Sunday.
Really? And then before
actually,
that?
I now actually went Saturday too.
Yeah, and before that, when did you go?
Last Sunday.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're
every
practicing.
Sunday.
Are you?
Yes, I am a
practicing.
practicer. I go. My wife gets me out of bed just to take me to church. Believe it
Really?
or not, and I go with her because
she's
I
trying
think-
to
because
clean
it's
you
important
up.
to her.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to what you were saying.
Science and religion.
How do you?
Oh, good question.
This is really heavy duty because
these
we
questions.
get this all the time.
Yeah.
So your religion is 6,000 years old, okay? Yet we go back and we find human remains that are 10, 20, 30, 100,000 years. As you know, they found a body that was almost intact in the Alps that was, I think it was like 30 or 40,000 years old.
Change
You re-
chair.
How
did you
do you-
research?
Yeah.
You want to
How
change
do you-
chairs?
How
Father
do you,
Gino, you
how
should
do
change
you-
chair.
I love this
Wait,
question.
wait a
Your
minute.
question
Go
is.
ahead.
Your question is science
my
and
point,
religion.
exactly.
Need to
So
light
my
these
point
candles.
is, how do you answer these people that say, "Hey, wait a minute, what are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Adam and Eve was not 100 years, 100,000, 100 million, 100,000 years ago. It's 6,000 years ago. What happened previous to
Yeah.
that?
So let's make that question even more. Like let's really ask that question.
Okay.
That question is.
You probably not asking better than me.
Yeah. Let's see. So if you take the Torah, the Bible,
Right.
literally, how many years ago was the world created? 6,000.
Correct.
Right?
That's my
6,000
point.
years ago. Or 5,784
There you
years
go.
ago. Now, anybody that has been to school in the last who knows how many years will know that how old is really the world? Millions and millions and millions and millions of years
course.
old. So how do you reconcile those two?
Correct.
Right? That's the great question. Honestly, like this is this is not a podcast on science and religion.
That's right.
I'd be happy to come back on to do a podcast on science and religion if that's kind of
won't be here.
if that's where you want to go.
No, but I want, like
Father
everybody
Gino
asks that
will-
question.
Yeah,
But
right?
asking all the
so
questions
maybe in a
again.
nutshell.
there are beautiful questions. There are beautiful responses. Some of those responses will look at the words of the Bible at the beginning there more as metaphorically, right? And some will talk about the 6 days of creation as being a day before, but a godly day, which is an epoch. It's an era. It's thousands and thousands of years. Some will talk about some of the the Jewish extrapolations that talk about universes that existed before our current universe. There are so many different ways to respond to this question, and I think that there's a lot of depth and meaning in each one of those different types of responses. But bottom line is I believe 100% that science and religion are completely compatible.
So
Is that fair?
Yeah.
For a little soundbite, because
Yes.
we're a soundbite generation.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
But we're gonna just shift a little bit of gears here.
Make it a little bit more official.
What are you doing?
We're giving you a white collar
You're
like you're
becoming
a priest.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate the thought.
So that's
So-
ordination.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you.
So you must face a lot of challenges out there. I mean, obviously, what's going on and stuff. Maybe share, one or two things that have been very challenging ever since you become a rabbi. Because I mean, people there that are in those positions always face a lot of challenges. But maybe share one or two of those that kind of hit you on whether or not you're you're dealing with the right situation when you're preaching the proper message, and kind of even some of the threats, because you've had some threats, right?
Yeah.
In the past.
Yeah, and that I would say, I don't even know if that has to do with me being a rabbi,
Right,
and more so with me just being a very visible Jew, right? Like the way you see me right now is the way I look all the time. And I think,
look good. You look good, Rabbi.
Thank you. Well, actually, my beard is.
This guy's a good hockey player, by the way. He plays with us hockey, and
Nice.
yeah,
and when we play hockey, I'm in the locker room. And not only do you get to see my kippah, but underneath my shirt, I wear my fringes, right? And I feel like sometimes I'm in the hockey locker room, and it's the first time someone's played hockey with me, and they're like, "What in the world is this guy wearing underneath his shirt?"
My understanding is that you're also here to circumcise Tony here.
Well,
did you not bring the knife?
Only once you were ordained. Are we ready for that?
Yeah, are you ready?
Yeah.
That's what I came for.
That is right.
I only came here for this. I didn't come here to listen to anything. We're here for the ceremony.
You guys are
So not why we're here.
You guys are.
It's like the there's that song. I forgot the name of it, but they talk about the rabbi keeping the tip. Yeah. There you go. Anyways, yeah. So yes, certainly, walking around as a visible Jew, and for me, it doesn't feel so concerning. You've met my son, 11 years old. He would dress as exactly the same as me. When he gets threatening comments on the street, when he's walking along the street and someone calls out some disgusting thing to him, that's really hard to digest. Like, that's a really hard thing to absorb, to talk to him about. Actually, want to hear a story?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Want to hear a story?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a hockey story. I love this story. So, especially after October 7th, there was anti-Semitism has really skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And my son plays hockey.
First of all, what happened October 7th? I'm kidding.
I know you're kidding. I listened to your last podcast. Yeah.
Good one, Rabbi.
I thought you were going to look at me like that. And, my son experienced some of that. And he plays hockey in just like the regular hockey leagues here in Ottawa. And he always wore his kippah into his locker room. And he was saying, like, he's starting to get, he's not sure if he wants to wear his kippah into his locker room anymore. He's not sure what people will say. Oh. So he started to wear his, it started to be the winter. He started to wear one of those toques, like a winter hat. And he did that for a couple of months. And then it was Hanukkah time. Right, Hanukkah, when we light the menorah, right, our candelabras that we light. It's a beautiful holiday, our festival of light, and he heard about. Well, he's a big hockey fan, and he always liked the Oilers because of McDavid, obviously, so do you know Zach Hyman on the Oilers, right?
He's a player,
fantastic hockey player, Jewish, exactly, and like not just Jewish, like very traditional. He went to Jewish day school, elementary school, Jewish high school. And my son heard about him because on Hanukkah this past year, he went and he did a public menorah lighting with a rabbi in Edmonton. And he also wrote a little column in one of the newspapers talking about how, calling out anti-Semitism and just sharing how he's a proud Jew. And, he feels like every single person should be able to wear their identity on their sleeve, no matter who you are. And that was basically his message. And he lit the Hanukkah menorah publicly. And at that moment, my son was like, this guy wears number 18. Number 18 for Jews is like such a big number. It's because it's the numerical value of the word life, and Jews are all about life. But anyways, so he's like, Zach Hyman, here's a hockey player in the NHL, and a really good hockey player in the NHL. And he's a proud Jew. He's not going to be afraid to wear his identity publicly. That game, he went back into his locker room with his kippah on, and he's never done differently since. Like it was just a beautiful story of when public people talk about these things and it can act as role models, the impact that they can have on our children and on the next generation.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's a great story. What would you do, and what would you say to someone that recommend that someone that wants to deepen their spirituality, maybe they've lost it but now wants to deepen and maybe go back? What would you say to that person? How would you get them back?
Honestly, I would say, seek out we all know someone that has a spiritual connection. Seek that out. Seek out that person that has that you feel has that way of living that is a little bit more elevated, a little bit more meaningful. And again, for somebody that's Jewish, they may be able to find it, and they probably will be able to find it in Judaism. But there are so many avenues towards finding that inner essence, that part that transcends all of the chaos of the physical day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some people that are living that way.
Are you suggesting that is this only for Jews, or is that
not at all? That's what I'm saying, is that we all can think of someone in our life that is living that way. Make for yourself a mentor. For yourself that person, and just try to soak that up from someone that's already living that way. I think that's a really big deal. Judaism talks a lot about that, how important it is to have a mentor, how important it is to have somebody that can help just kind of guide you on the path that we're all looking for. That healthy, confident, engaged, wholesome, unified path. And we all know someone that's living like that, hey?
Yeah, because when you speak to, being brought up Catholic, and obviously in an Italian family, it's crazy because you're taught to forgive your sins, tell the priest, do this, do that, and it's like, as you grow up, you start to realize, what religion really is. There's a good actual clip you can watch on YouTube. It's called "Why I Hate Religion." It's got over 4.5 million. It's probably 10 million views now. And this guy says it all. He actually rhymes a poem. You should listen to it. But the point I'm trying to make here is that, as a child, you're going to church, you're giving up your sins, you're doing this, and all of a sudden you start to get older. And, you hear all these horror stories about these priests and, with, doing this to little kids and doing that. So you start to lose, I'm not saying every priest is but then you start to lose, and you start to kind of explore. You're like, really? I gotta talk to this guy and, forgive my sins. Who is he? Why? Because he's closer to God than I am. Is he really though? So it makes you think, right? And this is the clash of opinion I always have in our faith, is because I don't know, maybe, you could tell me, but I just don't believe that you got to go through a ladder, to get to the top guy. If you're that good person and you're doing good deeds out there and you're helping people, whatever religion you are, that you got to go through the ladder to get to the guy on top.
God forbid.
Right?
No. This is why Tori and I have a clash of opinions.
We always have a clash of opinions.
We do. Because what he just said, he just put every single priest in the same category as being a child molester.
No.
You implied.
Here we go again.
No, but hold on. You implied that why should you go to a priest when you know everything they've done? So you're saying that
I'm saying
that priests are doing this.
Let me rephrase that again. There's some priests that have done that. It's public.
But it's not only priests.
I get it.
It's not only priests.
But
every religion.
I get it. That's why I get it. But having experienced that, having experienced that.
You've experienced it?
No, having whatever experience and listening heard it. And now hearing that,
I thought you were coming out here today.
You hear based on what you see and what you hear.
Yeah, okay.
Then you start to make your own opinion because you're brought up. And even to this day, a lot of, older Italian ladies, oh my God, oh Jesus Christ, oh, right? Well, at the end of the day, your faith should be with that one person, right? So my thing is, why do I have to go to 7 different ladders to get to the top? Why?
I don't know why you're saying that.
Well, because you know the way it is. You go through the priest, then the cardinal, then the bishop, then blah 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 blah.
You don't do any of that. I don't know.
But I'm a good Christian.
But you don't do any of that. Nobody has to go through these ladders you're talking about.
Because I've changed.
But I'm saying Christians don't do what you just said.
A lot of them do.
I don't have to go through a cardinal, through a priest, or through the Pope or anything like that at all. If you want to have a relationship with your priest and your God, you can do it through the church or on your own.
Yeah.
Nobody's forcing you to go to church.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
The church is just a place for people to gather and celebrate.
What would you call it? Just like you would call a synagogue, right?
You're not listening to Joe.
It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Go ahead. Go ahead, Father Gino.
Father Gino, go ahead. You know the way I feel about this, Gino.
I know, that's why.
Right.
And I'm trying to change his outlook because he categorizes every single person Christianity, religion, and priest under the same category, and I disagree
Not
with
true.
them
That's not-
because
you're
there
saying
is
words again.
like I am saying to
Guy's for real.
people that there's good and bad
Has
in
a
every
friend like that, eh?
every one of us.
100%.
Everyone. There's good rabbis and there's bad rabbis. By
Yes,
the way,
there's good. That's why I'm saying a good. That's why you should look at that video. Why I hate religion. I recommend our listeners, by the way, go to YouTube and put "Why I Hate Religion." You'll see there's over 4.5 million views. Really interesting. It talks about every single religion in there, and I think you should do it too. Before
I will.
I'm sure
I
without
actually
even
will.
seeing that video, I could say most of that video.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
100%.
You know,
100%.
But Tony,
and
you
that's-
have to understand that a church was built like a banquet hall.
Mm-hmm.
It's to make everybody gather into one place and celebrate.
Right.
That's what a church is.
Yeah.
Celebrate
You know something
God.
interesting?
Celebrate your belief.
what's the Hebrew word for synagogue? Beit Knesset, which means a home of gathering.
That's
So
what
there
it
you
is.
go.
Yeah.
Now, what are you gathering for? That's
So now the
that-
preacher that's sitting there, he's just he's just preaching, but everybody knows the religion.
Mm-hmm.
Don't need him to tell you the religion. But it's nice that you're all. It's like having a DJ,
Right.
DJ in a
Celebration.
wedding, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows music, but that guy plays it and everybody dances along.
Right.
That's why you go to a synagogue. That's why you go to a church.
So I'd like to think that when you go to these places, you're going to hear things that you didn't know or that you weren't thinking about, at least, right? If not, then I think you have a really good opinion, a point of like, why would you go to a house of worship? Right. If you're not going to come out with something new, if you're not going to come out with something, really something new or something that is renewed, I think that maybe you should think about a different house of worship, unless you are just going for the sake of community, which I think is really, really important as well. And at a synagogue, and I think church is no different, is that a lot of what happens in a synagogue is a community coming together.
Well, that's why when
That's what a church is,
That's
yeah.
why I liked Father Joe so much, because when I went there, I learned something. I wanted to go there.
It was amazing.
because it was always new, and he took the word of the Bible and kind of transmitted it into everyday life. So it's
Because
like
that preacher
it was almost
was good.
like it was like a psychology class, which I like. I'm all about the mind,
Totally.
right? And I think everything is in there that you need to know. It's just the way it's presented.
Totally.
And that's why leads that. That's why people that take that profession should do it well. And that goes back to what we were talking at the beginning, about knowing and communicating to people, as opposed to like just doing this like as another, ceremony. Like,
You know what? You just brought up a great point about Father Joe versus, the priest that we were last Saturday, right?
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example where the guy's just reading like this. And you can't
like didn't
understand the
look
word. Literally,
once.
you can't understand
He
anything.
didn't look once. I didn't even
There
understand
was no
what he said.
communication between the community
So
and the church.
Joe said something earlier. He's just a bad speaker, right?
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah, he's
The
just a bad
so,
speaker.
so there's good and bad.
So then
There's
maybe
good
shouldn't be
trainers
doing
and
the
bad
job. Then he
trainers.
should-
You're the one that
then he
knows
should-
that.
He shouldn't be doing the job.
See how well you motivate people? Yeah, but
The
they're
guy's
still
like
gyms
80
are
years
open
old
just
right
the same,
now.
Tony.
Well, you don't know his age, but then get better at what you do, because you're dealing.
He's not
going
gonna
to
get better at 80 years old.
Well, better yourself. No, he wasn't 80. He's just throwing out. He
He's
wasn't
probably
80.
670 at least.
No, now he's going to go down to the 10.
No. He's probably 70 years old.
Yeah,
Look
okay.
at Gino. He tries to better himself every day.
Yes.
My point
So I'm
is,
doing this
you can
podcast.
always do better than you think you can. Like one of the reasons,
yeah.
again, not to
But
two
they're not
rabbis.
motivated. They don't have the right motivation.
When I first met this guy, I actually met him because I was playing the Jewish men's. He's like, yeah, this rabbi's coming. He's going to play on our team. And, you don't think of his rabbi as a young guy. He was a young guy, hip, cool. I'm like, this guy's a cool guy. Like, you want to go. Let's say you didn't even know what he was talking about. You'd probably go just because he's a cool guy. You know what I mean? Like, you bond well. You know what I'm saying? So my point again is
That's my Twitter handle. It just says he's a cool guy.
I think
Come
Tony,
to our synagogue. He's a
Tony,
cool
what
guy.
I think is
Yeah.
if priests
Yeah.
were able to have a family life,
Mm-hmm.
a wife, a child, I think it would be different.
I agree. And I think,
that-
and by the way, I think they should.
I think
They should allow priests to get married.
because I think they would be able to preach differently, right? Like a rabbi has a
So
wife,
hard. Yeah.
has a family. Like if he sits there and tells you something, like he just explained his story about his son playing hockey, we all relate. We all have kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
If a priest was sitting there, he had no story to tell, but he would want to preach kids.
Exactly. Good point.
He would want to preach married life. But how can you preach married life
if you haven't lived it, I know.
If you have no clue what it
That's
is?
why, again, that's why these things don't
That's
make
the
sense.
only downfall I find in the Catholic religion is that the priests are not married. If the priests would be married, I guarantee you that religion would be different. in the sense of
Such an interesting point.
the preaching part.
Are there female rabbis?
So in some denominations of Judaism, there are, some there aren't. The more traditional there aren't, the less traditional there are.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, what do we have? Pastors? What are they called?
Kind of similar to the Catholic Church.
Well, yes.
Right? Similar to Catholic Church.
So in Christianity,
similar
there's
to
some that...
traditional Islam.
Well, some get married, you know that, right?
Yeah, well, outside of Catholicism.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So there are Christians, there are preachers who actually get married and have families, absolutely. And there are women, well, I guess, what would you call them? I mean, they're obviously not priests, they're preachers.
Pastors.
Well, you'd have
Pastor?
pastors, you'd have
I'm talking females now.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah,
And even in the traditional like parts of Judaism,
COVID.
a woman may not be a rabbi, but certainly there are many, many leadership positions that women assume, even in the most traditional communities.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I believe that, in Catholicism, that priests should be married, and they should also allow women to
Men and
preach.
women.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for me, it's about
100%.
making sure that both men and women are in leadership positions, and both are in positions where they can inspire and educate, not getting so caught up in like the title rabbi versus this versus that title and all those things. But yeah, I think that having leadership positions for men and women is going to be really, really important. And, I think that there are ways that men connect to other men, women connect to other women. I think that there's a lot there for sure. Yeah, very good point, for sure. Yeah. So are you two going to start going to House of Worship?
I think I'm going to build one.
I think you should.
Well, you know what?
Why don't you build an addition on mine?
I started reading like good passages every day. That was I actually got rest his soul. I used to send him to Val every day, and it's funny because he used to comment because I know how religious he was.
God.
Because you know what, I became kind of my own guy to like accept and adjust and acknowledge, right? So it's like you read some good passages, you put it into your everyday world, and again you're making yourself look better, right? Because I feel like when you come out of these, the church, the synagogue, you just feel better because, like you said, you kind of change the way you think, and you came in there, not thinking that that's what you're going to think. So that's a good thing. That's actually a positive thing. And
you took something out of it.
Yeah, you took something out of it.
Yeah.
And then, it wears off again. And then you wait till the next event. But I just started to, read some cool passages, and then I'd send them to him, and then he'd comment on some of them. So he'd kind of correct me on some of the stuff, which was good. But again, it led you to be that better person, which at the end is what I think, we're trying to do, is just try to share the progress with others of being a good soul, and whatever religion you believe in, to just share that and uplift people, right? Every day, right?
Yeah.
So
bring the very best of whatever your connection to spirituality is into the world. 100%.
Yeah. So what are the misconceptions then, like of some of the Judaism and the religion, that people think or kind of don't have an idea what it's all about? I mean, do you have any? Do you ever get people that say, "Oh, that's true"?
So as far as I know, we don't own the world banks. We don't have Hollywood. Hollywood is not in our hand. Like, we don't get to manipulate Hollywood. I don't know. What are some of the misconceptions that you have about Judaism? What are some of the things that you've heard about Jews that are?
They run the world.
They run the world.
Yeah. So I've been invited to those meetings. There may be Jews that run the world, but I have never been invited. So.
Right.
Yeah, so I can't really. But
I think
anything
they're
else?
part of it, but I'm not sure that it's that extreme, and people abuse it actually.
Explain what you mean.
So, what I'm saying is people abuse it because it's always the Jews that runs the world. It's always the Jews have the money. It's always the Jews that control everything. So they abuse it because they believe it. I don't believe it. I don't think it's true.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I think they're part of it,
just like anybody else.
Just like anybody else.
Yeah. So and I think, that is one of the realities is that a lot of these I'm joking about them, but they're actually really scary if you believe this stuff, right? Like, these ideas have been used to fuel anti-Semitism over the last century, and even way before that in really scary ways.
What do you mean? How is that fuel for anti-Semitism? I'm not understanding you.
To say and to disseminate this trope like the Jews run the world,
right? Or
the Jews, run the banks, or any of those things. Those ideas have been used to kill Jews throughout history, right? Those are the anti-Semitic tropes. Those are the anti-Semitic words that fuel hatred towards Jews.
Because they make you responsible for what's going on around the world.
Sorry?
So because they make the Jews responsible,
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah.
So they think that you're responsible for the atrocities around the world.
Yeah.
Because you run the world banks, you run the world, you call the shots. Why are you causing all this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. It's like one of the
Can you
most...
tell everybody that that's not true again?
Yeah.
Because people don't understand that.
Yeah, you think
That's
if we
not
actually
true.
ran the world, we could have stopped the Holocaust from happening, right?
Yeah.
Like it's nuts, and it's scary what people will believe when they're ignorant.
Yeah.
Like really scary. And that's what the point of this podcast is, and anything like that. We just need more education.
I think
like people
shed some light
cannot
for
walk
sure.
around ignorant anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
It just
on
leads to hate.
that note, we're actually going to get our listeners to comment down below. Would you take some questions? If we have some questions,
Yeah, I'd love that.
you can ask some questions. We're going to have the rabbi hopefully come on another show. In the
Absolutely,
future.
yeah.
Should bring a real priest though next time.
Yeah, we'll
That's
bring
actually
it.
a good idea.
Yeah.
Why don't we
like
bring
that.
a rabbi,
I
a
actually
priest,
like
Instead
that.
of Father
and an
Gino
imam?
over
Yes.
here.
Well,
I think it's a great idea.
A rabbi, a priest, and an imam.
yes.
Perfect.
And having said that, we're going to take our leave. So maybe some words of wisdom, some positive motivation for our audience, just as we say our goodbyes.
Oh, yeah. I think continuing having more and more conversations, understanding each other more and more, and understanding ourselves more and more. That's what's going to just lead to a world that's filled with love and goodness, and we'll slowly just stop the hate and lack of knowledge that so many have. So thank you for having me on. Thanks for having this conversation.
Thank you.
And I look forward to many more.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we'll take our goodbyes to our good listeners. In our next episode, we'll see you on Flex and Facts.